Should you use the wrist break or should you point the racket on your forehand? We're going to cover that in today's lesson, but first we have to explain what each one is, right? My name is Jeff Salzenstein. I'm the founder of Tennis Evolution, and I am eager, passionate, excited to help you get your forehand to the next level so that you can really improve your overall game. That's what we're here for. If you enjoyed this video today, just smash that like button because it tells YouTube to send it out to more tennis players like you. We're going to get into this forehand lesson right now. We're going to focus on the wrist break and the point the racket method. These two forehands are ones that you want to consider using when you play. Now, what is the wrist break method? Let's start with that style of forehand first. And so the way that I came up with the wrist break method is I was trying to help players get more topspin. I was trying to help myself get more topspin. And so the wrist break method, it's called this because at the very end of the swing, you focus on breaking the wrist. Now, I've never heard this anywhere else, and the reason I came up with it is because I'm fascinated with the follow-through of the swing. I believe if someone has a great follow-through, they have a much better chance of hitting a great forehand or a great backhand or a great volley. All the strokes really, if you have a great finish. So the wrist break method involves what happens at the end of the swing where you break the wrist like this. You don't want to break the wrist at contact, okay? You want to focus on breaking the wrist at the end of the swing. So let me go deeper with this. The wrist break method sets you up to be able to swing low to high, a more conventional swing. Not the swing you necessarily see the pros doing. The pros that are more advanced are going to have a swing path that goes more across, but we'll get into that in a moment. The wrist break method allows you to swing low to high like this, and at the very end, you break your wrist. And it's that breaking of the wrist at the very end that sets that intention that you're going to be brushing up the back of the ball. Now, I'm a big proponent of the Topspin Pro. The Topspin Pro allows you to swing low to high and learn the proper swing path where you keep the strings facing the net longer like this. So watch out, look at how the strings face the net, face the net, face the net, and then at the very end, it comes off and you break the wrist. I see people breaking the wrist in this part of the swing, too low and just after contact. You can do that when you have to get the ball up and down and when you're way inside the baseline. But when you're behind the baseline, you want to have a full swing, low to high, where you break the wrist at the end. So if I'm going to demonstrate this right here, I'm going to swing and notice what I do with the wrist. I break it and that makes the butt of the racket face towards the opponent, face over the net and even towards the sky. I don't see a lot of players doing that. And when I swing this way, I get height and I get topspin. A lot of you are struggling with topspin. So you can really work on brushing the back of the ball and breaking the wrist at the end. And what I love about this is all you have to do is swing and at the very end, see if your hand is above your ear like this and you've broken that wrist a little bit. What happens if you don't break the wrist? What happens if you swing and you keep the racket in this position like this? So you can see my wrist is neutral. If I take the racket out of the hand, the wrist is neutral. Then typically you're going to drive the ball more. You're going to hit it flatter. Robert Lansdorf was big on making players catch the racket with a neutral wrist like this, with the racket on edge. See how the racket's on edge? This allows you to extend and drive through the ball. You don't see that a lot in this day and age with pro tennis and even junior tennis. And I think this is a big mistake because players should work on driving through the ball first before they learn all the nuances of the swing at the highest level. Learn that extension first. So I came up with that wrist break because if you swing like this and you keep the racket on edge, if you just now turn the wrist up like this and make the palm face up towards the sky, like so, that's how you can get more topspin. So you can drive it and you can spin it. So you get that nice tight spin on the ball. You drive it and you spin it. That's your wrist break method. Now, what is pointing the racket. Well, I've done a video before on pointing the racket, and I used one of the best forehands of all time as an example. And he's not the only one that does this, Rafa Nadal. Now what Rafa is doing on many of his forehands, most of his forehands, if not all of them, is that when he swings and he makes contact, after contact you will see the tip of the racket pointing towards his opponent and up towards the sky. So you'll see this aggressive swing with the racket going up and the strings pointing by this stage of the motion. So he's not flipping over like this, and he's not swinging low to high and breaking the wrist. You never see him do that. You see him swinging out, up, and around. Out, up, and around. Now when players try to do this, a lot of times they'll swing and you'll never see their hand get above their head. So they'll try to point the racket and the racket goes about this high. But what Nadal does is he goes up. He goes up and you'll see that hand a lot of times above his head like this. But he's pointing the tip of the racket like this. So his wrist is more neutral, as if the palm is going to stay closed like this. So if I take the racket out of the hand and I swing low to high, wrist break method, look at the palm. Look at the palm. It's like swinging up a fence, swinging up the Topspin Pro, and then at the very end, I break it. At the end, not in here. I keep it on the plane as long as possible before I break it. With pointing the racket with no racket, if I'm not holding a racket, you're going to see this look right here. So you would think, oh my gosh, the ball's going to go into the net if my racket face is closed like this. It's not staying on the plane. But what happens is at contact, it looks like this. And then right here, this is when the wrist turns over a little bit right here. The hand and the wrist turns over and gets to this position right here. So it's a little move with the wrist right there. And that's what a lot of players are missing at the advanced levels, at the high levels. And I always teach players, first, learn the wrist break method. Learn to swing low to high, up against the fence, up against your Topspin Pro. Get that down. That's going to be your consistent day in and day out fundamental forehand. And then when you want to start lighting it up, playing like Nadal, playing like Federer, playing like the other top pros on the tour, you learn how to point the racket. Just make sure that racket and that hand go way up. You see Nadal using the buggy whip. Basically what he's doing is he's throwing the hand and the racket out like this and then coming back. He's throwing the racket out and then he's coming back. And those are your two types of forehands. There are other types of forehands out there that we could do full lessons on, but I wanted to cover the two forehands that I'm a big proponent of teaching, that I work with my players. And depending on their level and depending on their needs, because remember, tennis is situational, everybody's situational with their forehands, I usually adjust to see what works best for them. One thing that I didn't point out, and I should have done it earlier in this lesson, is you have to pay attention to your grip. So when you're playing, when you hold the racket, I prefer the semi-Western. You can do this with an Eastern grip. But you need to make sure that your index finger is spread like this. Because if it's in this position right here, where I call it a block grip, if you try to swing with a block grip, it's going to be hard to let the racket go. You have to have this trigger finger spread. So the wrist break method or the point the racket method. You choose, you pick, you use the one that you think is going to work best for you. Try both of them. See if you can incorporate both. If one is harder than the other, then you do the other one. Some people are going to gravitate towards the wrist break method. Some are going to gravitate towards the point the racket method. Regardless of what you do here, these forehands can work. They can help you get to the next level faster, and this should be crystal clear for you now to go out there and start improving your forehand. I had a blast making this video, and if you enjoyed it, again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video with the world. We want to help players get to that next level, and for those that really like my style of coaching, what they've benefited from in the past is getting into our free membership. So if you click the link in the description below or somewhere in this video, we're going to give you access to a free membership. Technique lessons, footwork lessons, strategy lessons, mental toughness, injury prevention, and it's all free. You don't even have to put a credit card in. Just sign up, get your free lessons inside the app and in the online portal. click the link below or somewhere in this video. Let's get you started accelerating your results with lessons like the one today. Thanks for your time. We'll see you at the next one.